This is Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to Flipping 50, where I solve your biggest challenges and concerns. And I share what to eat, how to move, and how to change your thoughts so you're going to get the energy and the vitality that you want in this second and better half. And I am so glad you joined me today. This is one of my favorite episodes. This is when I get to look back over the last year and decide, actually, look at what you decided are the most popular podcasts of 2018. So what I've done is gone through the most downloaded, most commented on, and most shared podcasts, and they are here. And I'm about to count them down in true David Letterman style, starting with 10, working my way up to number 1. It reminds me a little bit of Casey Kasem and the 100 countdown every Sunday. I think that was. So here we go. Number 10 is what your body wants to tell you. And actually, this is when I released at the very beginning of the year, back in January. The guest in this episode is your body. Imagine if it could talk. If you're struggling to lose weight, specifically fat, this is what your body would love to tell you. This podcast is another favorite among women, especially who have 20 or more pounds to lose. I'll put the link in the show notes, just like I will for the next 9. Number 9. 3 pillars of fitness and metabolism after 50. And this one of a podcast I published in March. You'll identify exactly what those 3 things are that have to be integrated to create your personal optimal fitness plan, and especially right now when you've got hormones pulling one side of you or pulling you in one direction. You may have joint issues and aches and pains from old injuries pulling you in another, and I'll let you listen if you need to catch up on that one for the 3rd pillar. Number 8 was released in early May, and it is motivation to lose fat and get fit after 50. And I have to tell you, there's a little cheat to the title. Any podcast or blog episode or post that has the word motivation in it is usually going to get a lot of attention. Lose fat is pretty much going to get a lot more attention. So again, this podcast is definitely for you if you have 20 or more pounds to lose. But even if you have a few less than that, this one is a good one. Number 7 is the cortisol and adrenaline connection. You hear it all the time, right? Cortisol, cortisol, cortisol. But it's not the only stress hormone, and there's more involved than just, cortisol is high, so that's the reason for your belly fat. My guest on this episode, Christy Mattoon, joins me in this May episode to break down the whole integrated hot mess of cortisol and adrenaline. Number 6, exercise for hormone balance and progesterone specifically is what we talk about in this episode. This one is a juicy episode of a ton of resources in a really user-friendly way. So if you're trying to avoid just using that blanket statement as, it's just my hormones or my hormones are out of balance, but yet you don't really know or break down which one it is and how is that causing you a problem, this will start to unpack some of that. It includes a sample week of exercise for hormone balance and other daily habits and resources that'll help you understand how to positively impact your progesterone balance. Now, second half, we are down to number 5 in the countdown. Is detox really necessary? Why and how? And my guest on this episode is Bridgit Danner, who is a functional diagnostic nutritionist, and she's an acupuncturist as well. She shares her professional experience, but suddenly, personally, she went through a problem with toxic mold in her home that sent her searching for even more answers than as a professional she already had. It's a subject near and dear to my heart as I record this in December of 2018, and hopefully when this comes out, I will be able to talk about it with a little less stress. If you're used to thinking of detox in terms of just green smoothies, this is definitely going to open up some new insight for you. And moving on to number 4. 5 fat-burning research studies for women over 50. This podcast's popularity proved to me that we are prove it to me girls. We want to know what to do. We want to know how, but we also want to know why. Show me the reason. Why is this the right path for me to be on? And I love that because that's so me as well. So if you're interested in burning fat, and you're not able to do it with the strategies that you're using, here's the insight that you want from very recent studies that are pertinent to women in perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. Counting down to number 3, how to exercise for hormone balance. And this one was published the first day of August in 2018. Really what we did is unpack what it is. What is hormone balance? Potentially by starting with what is hormone imbalance? What does that look like? But most importantly, how do you achieve hormone balance? Specifically, yes, through exercise, but exercise alone won't do it. So this episode dives into what are the daily habits and what are the nutritional habits that will also help you get there faster and more comfortably. Counting down, we're getting close. This is number 2, 5 myths that sabotage your hormones. The 5 myths that I included in this episode were from almost 3.5 decades of experience, but also from recent subscribers, students, or social media questions. So in 3 decades, we've come a long way, baby, but it's easy to be stuck with thoughts that you learned long ago. Hopefully this podcast episode gave you, or will, if you're thinking about going back to review this one, released also in May. May was a big month for popular podcasts. Must have been a kind of a binge I was on. But this one will give you some insight into your thoughts, maybe your mindset around certain habits you've got and why it's so difficult for you to change them so that potentially you could with a little more proof. And finally, drum roll, the number 1 podcast from the Flipping 50 podcast of 2018 is 10 ways to get fit and avoid self-sabotage. And I released this one at the beginning of summer to actually give you some really easy tips. And you know I'm not your girl who's going to tell you that it's 100 burpees or push-ups or 100 anything for that matter a day. These are really low energy, low investment, easy habits that you can do right now to literally help you get more fit by avoiding self-sabotage. And there you have it. That was the top 10 podcasts from the Flipping 50 show in 2018. I'm looking forward to an amazing 2019, and I'd both love to hear from you if there are topics that you'd love me to share. If there's an expert you'd love me to invite onto the show, or if you would like to be a guest on the show, either to sit in the hot seat, we'll call it a warm seat, for some live coaching, or if you'd like to sit in the hot seat and tell us your success story. What have you accomplished that might inspire somebody else listening to this show to break through barriers or limiting beliefs about a certain age or being a certain weight and having never exercised and starting after the age of 50? So if you've got a question, you've got a suggestion, or you want to volunteer yourself or a friend to be a guest on the show, leave me a comment at flipping50.com/best of 2018, where you'll find all the show notes for tonight, listing all of those 10 episodes that you can come back to review and or catch up on. And you can always subscribe in iTunes to have them downloaded directly to your phone so you can listen while you walk, you run, you lift, or you commute. What are you waiting for? Let's start flipping 50 together. And if you are listening to this episode at the end of 2018 or the very beginning of 2019, Happy New Year.